English by the Nature Method by Arthur M. Jensen. Brought to you by Ayan Academy.
Chapter 49. A Visit to the Harbour of London. Storm had had a busy morning at the office. The manager's bell had rung for him at least 5 times. "The old man does nothing but ring his bell for me this morning," Storm said to Marshall. While he was speaking, the bell rang once more. When he had entered the manager's office, the manager began by saying, "You know that the Harbour of London is the greatest harbour in existence, and that ships go from there to all parts of the world. But have you ever visited it? If not," he continued, "there is a chance for you to do so today. I want you to go down to a ship lying in the harbour and speak to the captain of the boat. We often have trouble with him, because he decides things for the firm without asking us. If he is in doubt about anything connected with the affairs of the firm, he does not ask us what to do, but decides the matter himself. It matters nothing to him that we've never given him any authority to do so. But, of course, we cannot take the responsibility for what he does without being told by us. If the responsibility is to be ours, that is, if we are to pay for the goods and anything that is done with them, he must ask us what to do and not decide things on his own. It is very unpleasant to have anything to do with people like this captain, who do things without any authority from those for whom they work. This man speaks English very poorly, but I hope that you'll be able to make out what he says, for I want you to tell him that he may give as many orders as he likes to the men on his ship, but that if the firm has any orders to give, I will give them. We also want some goods that are lying in the harbour, and on which duty must be paid first. We need the goods badly, because we have sold all that we had, so that we have no more in stock. If an article sells well, it's always best to have a good supply in stock. I will write out a check for the amount of money that will have to be paid in duty, and you can take it with you. The amount of duty is £10, 9 6, and I will write out the check at once. You will remember, of course, to get a receipt for the amount so that our bookkeeping department can see that the money has been paid." Storm promised to get a receipt for the check and mentioned that it would be his first visit to the harbour, after which he left the manager's office. The man to whom he paid the money at the custom house soon discovered that Storm was a foreigner, and on hearing that it was his first visit to the harbour, he offered to show him some of the things worth seeing there. The first building to which they came was used to store corn. Storm's new friend said that many of the buildings were used for grain. "What kind of grain do you store here?" he asked the man. "There are 3 or 4 important kinds," he answered, "but by far the most important is wheat, because most of the bread eaten in England is white bread. However, we don't produce enough wheat in England for our own supply, and although there is such a lot stored here, it is not enough to supply the country with white bread for more than a month. Other countries have supplied us with the greater part of our wheat for the last 100 years. At one time England was a country with many farms and farmers, and as in those days there was more than enough wheat, we used to export wheat to other countries. Then the rise of industries using a lot of machinery suddenly changed the whole picture, and one factory was built after another, so that in our days England is most interested in her industries. The coal, steel, iron, cotton, and woolen industries are by far the most important. I will now take you to a building that will, no doubt, interest you very much. In it we store the many different articles that come from the East." As soon as they entered the building, Storm saw 5 or 6 cats and asked the man what they wanted cats for. "These are very special cats. our fellow workers, so to speak," his guide explained. "The buildings here are all full of rats, and it is the duty of the cats to catch and eat the rats. We feed them once a day on fresh meat, not very much, of course, but just enough to make them feel that they belong to us. For the rest, they must catch rats, and as they all look nice and well fed, it seems that they are doing their work properly. Some of the rats are very big and will sometimes even butt a man's leg. I was bitten by a rat once myself. A very unpleasant experience, I can tell you." Storm saw a man standing in front of a large box with a hammer in his hand. He was using the hammer to open the box, on one of the sides of which were some very strange marks. Storm could not understand the meaning of the marks, but was told that the box had come from the East, and that the marks must be in some strange Eastern language. This man had worked there for 25 years and knew almost all that could be known about articles from the East. He was an expert at his work. There were a number of other men, too, who on account of many years' experience had become real experts at their work. Storm remained in the front of the box that was being opened, as he wanted to see what it contained. After a few minutes, he saw that it contained many Eastern articles which are usually sold very cheap. The man, however, explained that the articles were no longer so cheap as they used to be. They had always paid insurance on the goods, so that if anything should happen to them on the way to Europe, the firm would receive money for the damage that had been done. But both during and after the war, they had had to pay a much higher insurance on goods from foreign countries. Storm noticed that the building had many large doors, through which he could see some lorries and also a horse and cart. Porters were busy taking goods to the door where the lorries and carts were being loaded. Storm watched the porters at work for some minutes and then spoke to one of them, saying that it must be hard work. "Yes, indeed it is, sir," the porter replied. "And if I had 1 pound in money for every pound I have loaded in weight, I should be a very rich man." Storm's new friend now offered to show him down to the ship that he wanted to visit. On their way they saw a boat full of coal leaving the harbor. "Storm, the ship is just as dirty and black as the coal itself." "Yes, black is the right color for a ship carrying coal." "Storm, look, there are 2 small boats just in front of her, pulling her along." "They're called tugs, aren't they? Do you know where she is bound for?" "She is bound for Scandinavia, for one of the countries with little or no coal. The 2 small boats are called tugs, all right. They are pulling her out into the middle of the river." "I don't understand why coal is shipped from London," said Storm. "Because all the mines from which the coal is taken are much farther north. They usually ship the coal from some place near the coal mines, but now and then it's shipped from London," the man replied. When at last they reached the ship that Storm was looking for, he saw 2 sailors painting the side of the ship with black paint. Storm turned to his friend and said, "We have now passed 5 or 6 ships, and on all of them 1 or 2 sailors have been painting. Have sailors nothing else to do but to paint the sides of their ships?" He called to the 2 sailors, asking them if the captain was on board. On hearing that he was, Storm said goodbye to his guide and went on board. He found the captain standing with another officer of the ship. When Storm had introduced himself, the officer walked away, and Storm began to tell the captain what the manager had said. The captain soon got very angry and said to Storm, "I am a man who has sailed all the oceans of the world, and yet your manager, who sits in his office all day, sends me his foolish orders." However, after Storm had explained in detail why it was important that the captain should never decide anything for the firm on his own, the captain grew quieter and promised to do only what he was told. "I will do as your manager wishes," he said. "The trade between England and my country is very great, and I hope that I may help to make the 2 countries buy still more from each other, so that the trade may become still greater." When Storm returned to the office, the manager thanked him for what he had done. Exercise C. Grammar. The words who, whom, whose, which are called relative pronouns. Here is an example to show you how they are used. It is the postman who brings the letters in the morning. In this sentence, there are two parts. It is the postman and who brings the letters in the morning. The relative pronoun who, in the last part, is connected with and takes the place of the word postman in the first part. Now, these relative pronouns are not all used in the same way. From the following examples, you will see that who, whom, whose are used about persons, and that which is used about animals and things. You will also notice that who is used about the person who does or is something, but that whom is used about the person to whom something is done or happens, while whose is used about the person to whom something belongs. Examples: the man who found the boy was very old. The dog which found the boy was very old. The woman whom I saw yesterday was very old. The dog which I saw yesterday was very old. The book which I bought today was very dear. There comes the girl whose brother is ill. Instead of who, whom, and which, in the examples given, we might have put that, which may also be used as a relative pronoun, both when we speak of persons and when we speak of animals or things. Here are some examples. Here comes the man that lives in the new house. It was his wife that I saw yesterday. Is this the cat that your mother gave you? My father, whom you saw yesterday, has left for London this morning. Buckingham Palace, which is one of the finest buildings in London, is the home of the King and Queen. In these sentences, where the relative pronoun is connected with and takes the place of the name of a thing or person, well known beforehand, we cannot use that, but only the pronoun who, whom, whose, and which. Notice that you may leave out the relative pronoun altogether when it takes the place of the person, the animal, or the thing that something is done to. Examples: it was his wife I saw yesterday. Is this the cat your mother gave you?